Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Loretta McNary Show. Today's conversation is all about leadership, but not the kind defined by titles, the kind defined by impact, intention, and the courage to transform systems from the inside out. Joining me is Dorian Spears, principal of DML Strategy Group, a leader known for meaningful, lasting change. Her work spans from philanthropy, government, and community leadership, moving resources, shifting mindsets, and opening doors for voices that are often left out of the conversation. Everybody, welcome to the Loretta McNary Show, Dorian Spears. Hi, Dorian.
Hey Loretta, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited that you're my guest. We've known each other for quite a few years and discovered that we're related, and you've never been on the show. So I'm so pleased and privileged to have you today.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question is, so before all your titles and accolades and the work we see today, who were you as a young girl and what were you naturally drawn to?
So I am the daughter of Melanie and Billy Spears. Grew up primarily in South Memphis and a big library kid. Love to read a lot of books, still read books, many of which I still need to complete. And just someone who grew to have a passion for community through the people that wrapped their arms around me as a child.
So do you remember the moment in time, whether you were still a young child, because I can only imagine that you probably were, when you realized that you had a voice, you had an interest and a strength that most people didn't have when it came to leadership or just loving the community and wanting to make sure that you lived a life that your parents would be proud of and that it would help and uplift other people?
That's a really good question that I do not think I've been asked before. But if I had to think of one moment, I was around 12. I was directress in our number two choir, the children's choir. And there was a moment when we were rehearsing and the younger kids weren't quiet. And I, at the time, had had a lot of like music training and was starting to get disciplined in the arts. And the kids wouldn't stop talking. So I remember just telling their parents in the pews, I was like, hey, if you don't get these kids to be quiet so we can practice, I probably don't need to be a directress anymore. And it happened so that they kept talking. So I went and sat down and just said, I'm going to sing.
And you were how old? Did I hear you say 12?
I was 12,
You
but
just made
that was a short-lived assignment in the church for me.
But you made a big statement, a bold statement. And it's so much because you met Kyler, my grandson, and he is so like that too. He's like the adult and he's 12. So he wants the children to sit down and behave and, do the right things and, stop all the chaos. So that's the way he is. And he's 12. So I knew he was going to be a leader because he's going to be like you. And like his dad, his mom, of course. But I want people to understand we come here like this. We are born. God has instilled everything we need to be successful in us, not when we become a teenager or an adult, but he does it so beautifully when we are first born. So tell us about, you are now an entrepreneur, small business owner. You've been in corporate, you've been in the nonprofit sector. What was it like shifting? Was it a pivot or was it a mindset that said, you know what, I can better serve my community in this world if I run and own my own company?
As it relates to entrepreneurship, there was a period of time, I think in 2010 or 2011, where I had helped assemble, and there was a co-conspirator that I've known since I was three to get just women from different backgrounds together to understand, what motivates them, what helps them progress in the city of Memphis specifically, who hinders them, where do they kind of come into roadblocks. And I recognized out of this group of, at the time, it started out to be about 30, 35 women, and it's grown to over 100, was many of them were on that cliff of going into entrepreneurship. And I am a firm believer that you are the summary of like, the handful of people you spend your time around. And I knew at some point it was going to be inevitable after moving to government, economic development, philanthropy, and tech, that at this point I've learned a lot from, I'll say, the billionaires that have seeded the dollars into a lot of the work that I've done over the last 13 years. And it was going to be a matter of time before I got to launch out and do my own thing. And it came from me recognizing also I am becoming an elder on teams. So what is it like to pour back into folks and kind of, bestow wisdom? So last year is when I said, you know what, it's time to make the step and take all the lessons I've learned and bet on myself to launch my own thing. And it's been a slow and arduous, mostly hard task, but I do think the rewards will benefit and it'll be worth it in the time to come.
Absolutely. And it's worth it now. It depends on which bucket I'm looking at because I feel the same way. I'm like, am I really making an impact? Should I do this or should I do that? I'm so glad I've been sticking and staying. I will continue to do that. But every leader runs into resistance. Actually, every person, every business owner, every community leader. So when you run into resistance, what have you found that calms your spirit or and moves you forward to get you away from just concentrating on that one thing in life
I
as a
do
big.
thankfully Oh, I do have the ability, thankfully, to still be able to communicate with my mom and talk to her, and she bestows kind of advice because I got to watch some of her corporate battles growing up, which is why I didn't do completely corporate as an adult. Um, Also, I'm a yogi, so I've been practicing yoga for quite a bit of time now, gotten more into meditation and just learning the importance of being still. So when the barriers and those, mountains come, I sit with myself and figure out what's the next best step I can take and not get so caught up in the resistance of it all. I also go to therapy. So with that and having a village around me to like talk to and vent to hear from their own struggles and how they've navigated, I know that I can't get through these hard times without other folks. So it's like, how do I bring them
Mhm.
in at the right time and in the gifts that they're able to share with me so that I can come back stronger?
That is so beautiful. And ever since I've known you, you've always had this calm and peaceful aura about you, and you're quiet, but you're like a storm because you have all this going on in your head and your mind. And if people just knew all the things that you accomplished, all the achievements, all the people that you've helped, it would be difficult for them to understand how calm you can sit here. But she's always like this ever since I've known her. Everybody, it could be chaos all around her. She's gonna be the one constant that's gonna be calm and figuring out a plan. As you saw, even at 12, she was trying to bring peace in the midst of calm. So tell us about your business and the services that you provide for other businesses.
Sure. I have taken, again, my experiences of working in nonprofit, kind of segue to the government sector, economic development, and kind of helping small businesses, and made it my own kind of consulting firm where I help people, whether they're navigating a particular challenge in the workplace, in the form of advisory services, creating trainings with the people that we want to serve in mind. So I am really big on being reflective of what a client or potential client asks of me and making sure I can deliver that. Whereas I recognize as someone who's been on the other side of that, sometimes people are going to deliver as consultants what they want to deliver. And I try to stand out and have a differentiator of not being that person. And also being able to speak about my experiences. As I said before, I've navigated some really rough and tough moments with, intense folks, lots of money at stake, egos in the room, and what is it like to be able to persevere through that and still come out whole, particularly as a Black woman, is very important to me. So, yeah, I'm able to now get paid to go talk about those experiences in a way that I don't think I ever dreamed was possible.
Oh, that's beautiful. I could talk about that all day long, but I want to ask this question. So, in your work with equity centered leadership, what's one truth leaders need to hear, but it's really hard for us to hear it and then to own it? What do you think that's that one thing that we need to hear and be reminded of? For me, it's not, it's I can't please everybody, no matter how great a decision I make and how much I give. Someone's going to be unhappy or even disappointed in something I said or did. Do we own that or do we understand there will be a loss if you're doing the right thing?
When it comes to making the right decisions for the greater good, there are going to be moments where ego has to disappear. In fact, I'm a big fan of when you are entering a room with people and there's a contentious environment that you leave your ego at the door. And I recognize I've sat at many tables with people that are quick to puff their chest out and they have a title of leader. And I think another kind of piece that I'll speak about with that is there's being a leader and like having a title attached to your name. And then there's an embodiment of leadership, which are not the same. You can be a leader and not have a title and be able to get people to move and come together towards consensus or a goal or may not agree with each other at the end of the day, but they know that there's been respect at the table. And to me, embodiment of leadership means way more than a title could ever be granted from the money that you make that's attached to that title. Is what is it like to be able to embody acknowledging someone's humanity when you might be making decisions that are difficult?
Ooh, that's deep. And it just reveals more opportunities for me to to have questions for you, because you are definitely a subject matter expert in this field of leadership to me. And also knowing that leadership is more than a title, because just because you have a title doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing the job of a leader. What I found is most people who are leaders, they never even thought that they should have the title of leader, and that they, of leadership. It's the person who makes a difference in somebody's life and who can influence them. And so in that essence, I think all of us are leaders. But my question is to just, what do we do with that leadership role and title? How do we know if we're actually leading someone?
My litmus comes in a couple of phases. I think when elders are pleased after being around for as long as they have, there's wisdom at the table. There's a lot of life lessons and hard won battles that when they're able to say, "Hey, I appreciated the way you handled that," that makes me excited inside. And I also think on a bigger level, when people come back and are able to say thank you because you helped make a difference, that's important. And the last piece I'll add to that is when you're able to help instill that embodiment of leadership in other folks that are beside you that may forget that they are leaders sometimes, is the importance of reminding people who they are, as well as the young folks that are coming up in the world. And, there's a little bit of, we think when we're younger, we know everything, but we recognize when you do come to leadership and wisdom, there's a lot more you realize you have questions about that you don't know than you actually do. So being able to come to the table with a level of humility about the ability to get something done or instill, wisdom in someone else is absolutely important to me as a leader, is to pass that along, because we are at some point going to pass away and leave this earth. So what is it like to plant that seed and other folks so that they can continue to carry that torch that you've had for a time?
Whew, you're so deep and profound. I'm telling you, that's why I was so excited about having this conversation. So, for women who are watching and they know they are called to lead, maybe start a business, maybe apply for a position within their corporate environment, but they're doubting themselves. They are saying they're not good enough. They're not, but they have as the young people say, receipts, right? They have the experience, they have the achievement and the accolades, but they're still doubting themselves. So, what can you say to them directly that they need to hear? Because I don't care if you're totally qualified for a position, but you have the main things. Apply for it. Apply. So what do you
Yeah.
what how can we encourage them?
One thing I learned, I think, in the tech work I had a chance to do with gender equality in tech about now two years ago, is that women are less likely to apply for a job if they don't get the 100% match of qualifications, right? Meanwhile, men are just bold and and doing all the things. They may meet 4 or 5 of the qualifications and still go for it. I think it's to take that bold step to strengthen that muscle and just do it. Um, I think the other thing about what happens when you doubt yourself is to find your village, find the people that you know will consistently sow into you, and be comfortable asking for help to say, "Hey, I need some reassurance today. Can you speak life into me? Can you remind me of who I am?" And as vulnerable and woo as that might sound to some folks that are in, some high level positions, having someone speak life into you does change the cellular structure of our body so that we can go forth and do the thing. But I think it's asking folks when you recognize you're not quite where you want to be to like remind you of who you are. And I take the time to do that with people no matter where they are, or I sense it and they may not ask. But it's made a really big difference for me, particularly in the entrepreneurship realm. Working the 9 to 5 was different because there's like a paycheck that was coming. So there was some sort of incentive. But when you're working
Mhm.
for yourself, you don't get those thank yous you don't get much of anything until, they finally, the invoice clears or, clears your bank account. But what is it like to reach out to your village to say, "Hey, I'm in a moment right now where I don't feel as strong. Can you say something? Can you share something with me that might help me leave a bit better than you found me?"
Oh my goodness, I'm enjoying this conversation. So you talk
Me
about creative
too.
You talk about creating environments where people can truly thrive. What does that look like when it's done right? Because I've been to, and I'm not definitely gonna call names or the city, but I've been to environments that were created and promised to do certain things. But when I walk in, I don't feel it at all. And maybe it was just a day, or maybe it was just me. So I'm not saying they're not. So, what does that look like when you're truly creating an environment where people can come to that environment and they leave feeling better? They're thriving because of that one experience. There is a place in Atlanta, Georgia called RICE, Russell Center for Innovation for Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. And when I say that tour was 2.5 years ago, well, in 2023, yeah, 3 years now, I'm still impacted by it. My business has grown because of that, my mind. And you said things, it changes you on a cellular level and not just a mindset. That's deep and profound. You got to come back and talk about that. But what does that really look like when there's an environment where you should be thriving?
One specific example I can think of, and this is just from the leadership roles I've had the opportunity to live into, is asking someone how they like to be communicated with, whether it's good news, not so good news. What are ways, not necessarily treat people the way you want to be treated, which I know is the golden rule. I'm on the platinum rule stance that treat people the way they want to be treated, because that way you're going to get more buy-in and connection, and things are going to go a bit more smoothly. It won't be perfect because we're humans coming together, toward a goal, and we're just different and we're coming from different paths. But asking someone something as clear as how would you like to be communicated with, understanding and acknowledging someone's identity. I've had a chance to do a lot of, gender equality work, a lot of race equity work. And when people are in spaces where they've been invisibilized and they're not being seen, that absolutely is going to shut someone away and not allow them to participate. And I'll say more recently, I think I was telling you before we got on the connection, is to say I've had a chance to go. I just got back from Canada like 2.5 days ago and had the most beautiful experience with Black French speaking people from the continent, and how even though I do understand quite a bit of French, I'm just not able to speak it and articulate it fluently, that I still felt welcomed in the room because there was this, maybe I don't know if it was our Blackness that kept us together or the culture that runs across the globe with us, but I still felt welcomed even though they, they're speaking French because that's the language they're trying to uphold in the country. And I have a love for the language. So what is it like to still sit at their feet, take the wisdom that they have to give, accept the food that they give me, us dance a little bit, and just be able to have a moment where we're connecting. So, yeah, it's just asking people how they want to be identified and acknowledged is the beginning of being able to build, a way towards, leadership and being able to have welcoming spaces.
Wow. There will be a part two. I'm just going to tell you all that now. There will definitely be a part two. I just feel so elevated, even just having this conversation with you, Doran. And that's what you do. That's what you give without even trying. So I want to thank you not only for the work you are doing, but how you do it. I thank you that you see people that feel unseen. You hear people that have not been heard, and that you're doing the work for us, for voices that people don't want to hear. So what stands out most though in this conversation is that true leadership isn't just about influence. It's about intention. It's about creating space where others feel like they are able to rise and to be heard and to thrive. And that's what you do through your company. That's what you do through even your familiar well, we already know you, right? It's a personal situation and not just a professional. You bring that same um leadership equity to everywhere you go. So people, if you want to have a conversation with her about your business, about your leadership, about how to thrive in your own environment, please tell them, Dorian, how they can reach out to you.
So the fastest way is just to find me on LinkedIn, Dorian Spears. Again, I'm a beginning business owner, so I'm finding just like the simplest ways for people to connect with me. And I have a schedule on Calendly where you can just get like 30 minutes and we can have a conversation about your needs or ways you're thinking about the world and might want a little support along the way.
It's all elevation, honey. It's about elevation and equity and excellence with Dorian. And just, that free call. I don't think I'm going to give me a 30-minute free call too.
Let's do it.
But anyway, Dorian, thank you so much. And to our viewers, I could not do the show without you. So I want you to take this with you. Your impact is not defined by where you start, right? But by how you choose to show up every day. And when you are showing up, bring your A plus game, right? Bring your A plus game. I like what she said, well, she's not on the golden rule, she's on the platinum rule. Another gem that we're going to have to talk about some more, because that was like bars, as my son would say. So, anyway, we have another segment coming up next. So, don't go too far. Thank you for being here on the Loretta McNair Show. See you in just a moment.